In this lesson, you are actually going to learn how to solve quadratic equations by completing the square. So, by the end of the lesson, you should be able to use completing the square to solve a quadratic equation, and you should be able to recognize that there are quadratic equations that may not have a solution. And I will actually show you the graphical significance when we have quadratic equations that do not have a solution. Now, I want you to actually have a look at these three quadratic equations. Pause the video for a while and I would like you to solve these quadratic equations. Right. Let's start off with the first one. So when we have x squared minus 4 equals to 0, we can actually factorize it as x minus 2, x plus 2 equals to 0. Therefore, x equals to plus or minus 2. All right, what about the next one? You cannot get a perfect square for 12, but you can actually solve it as x minus square root of 12 and x plus square root of 12 equals to 0. Because you know that 12 is actually square root of 12 square, which means x is plus or minus square root of 12. Now, what about the last one? X squared plus 9 equals to 0. X squared equals to minus 9, and there is no solutions. At this stage, you're talking about no real number solution. All right? So, what are your observations? You can see that when x squared is equals to a negative number, we cannot actually solve it. But if you actually plot x squared plus 9 on the Cartesian plane, you actually have a curve like this. All right? We'll talk about plotting a little bit later. And this is y equals to x squared plus 9. All right? When x is 0, this is actually 9. All right? So therefore, you know that there is no x-intercept. So the graphical significance when we have got a square equals to a negative number, it means that there is actually no x-intercept. This will be elaborated a little bit more later. Now, the other way of actually solving the first and the second one is you can actually write it as x squared equals to 4. Therefore, x equals plus or minus 2. Same with the second one as well. X squared equals to 12. X therefore equals to plus or minus square root of 12. All right? Or you should actually realize that this is plus or minus square root of 2, plus or minus 2 square root of 3. All right? Simplify your surds all the time. So now, I would like you to have a look at the next slide, which is completing the square. All right, let's have a look at just this bit only, just left-hand side. All right, so if I work on the left-hand side, x squared plus 2x, what we can do is complete the square because we know that we cannot factorize this. 2 over 2 square minus 2 over 2 square minus 9. All right, of course we write equals to 0. Again, still concentrating on the left side. So we therefore have x squared plus 2x plus 1 minus 9 equals to 10. So we can factorize this as x plus 1 square and add this together, minus 10 equals to 0. All right? That should be 0. So therefore, x plus 1 square equals to 10, and x plus 1 equals to plus or minus square root of 10, or x equals to minus 1 plus or minus square root of 10. All right? So you can see that if you cannot factorize the quadratic equation into integers, you can always use completing the square method to actually factorize it. And your answer is generally a fraction or asserts. Of course, from this step, you can also do x plus 1 minus 10 and x plus 1 plus 10 equals to 0. All right? Oh, actually, no, it's actually square root of 10. All right, my fault. So you can get the same answer. X plus 1 minus square root of 10 equals to 0. Therefore, x equals to minus 1 plus square root of 10. And the other one is x plus 1 plus square root of 10 equals to 0. X therefore equals to minus 1 minus square root of 10. So this is using the same method, except slightly different method, not the same method. You are actually using difference of perfect square. So either one is fine. All right? I would like you to, for the next slide, I would like you to pause the video for a while to see if you can solve the next slide. This time, next quadratic equation, not next slide. You can't solve the next slide. So let's try to solve this. X squared plus 8x plus 6 equals to 0. Now, you should be able to check your answer with mine. So this is what I'm going to do. X squared plus 8x. Complete the square. I know it's 8 divided by 2 all square. Straight away, I will work it as plus 16 minus 16 plus 6 equals to 0. Here, it becomes x plus 4 all square minus 6 plus minus 16 plus 6 is minus 10 equals to 0. So therefore, x plus 4 all square equals to 10. X plus 4 equals to plus or minus square root of 10. And x equals to minus 4 plus or minus square root of 10. Right. I would like you to try another one. Again, the next one, I want you to pause the video for a while. Solve this. X squared plus 2x minus 14 equals to 0. This is my solution. So therefore, it's x plus 1 square minus 15 equals to 0. X plus 1 equals to, actually x plus 1 square equals to 15. X plus 1 equals to square root of plus or minus square root of 15. And 1 equals, x equals to minus 1 plus or minus square root of 15. Right? So you are getting familiar with how to do factorizing, solving an equation by factorizing, by completing the square. Now, let's try a slightly different problem. I would like you to think about how you could do this. All right? It is the same procedure using completing the square, but this time it involves an odd number which you cannot be divided by 2 easily. Right? This is the way I will do it. Left hand side will be x squared minus 7x plus 7 over 2 square minus 7 over 2 square minus 3 equals to 0. All right? So you know that I can factorize this into a perfect square, x minus 7 over 2 square, and minus 49 over 4 minus 3 equals to 0. Right, and therefore, I can work this out as 7x minus 7 over 2 square minus 49 plus 3, actually not 3, 12, bring it into this common denominator, equals to 0. Therefore, x minus 7 over 2 square minus 61 over 4 equals to 0. And x minus 7 over 2 square equals to 61 over 4. X minus 7 over 2 square. X minus 7 over 2 equals to plus or minus square root of 61 over 4. Of course, you know that square root of 4 is 2. So x minus 7 over 2 equals a plus or minus square root of 61 over 2. And x therefore equals to 7 over 2 plus or minus square root of 61 over 2. Or you can actually write it this way, with one common denominator, 7 plus or minus square root of 61. All right? Now, let's try the next one. So this time is square root, x squared minus 6x, completing the square, plus 9 minus 9 plus 12 equals to 0. And we have x minus 3 square plus 3 equals to 0. And what happened is this time x minus 3 square equals to minus 3. Therefore, there's no solutions. In fact, I would say no real solution. Alright, I've shown you quite a few examples of solving quadratic equation by completing the square. Now, if we cannot factorize a quadratic equation easily, it can always be solved by completing the square. Now, just note that we are only dealing with monic quadratic expression at this stage. So with this procedure, it always usually results in fractions or surds as the solutions. Right, this is the end of the lesson. Time to do some work.